Prophet Muhammad. Since then, again, bulldozers have been out in action, like in Prayagraj, where in fact properties of some of these accused were destroyed. It led to a lot of outrage, and now one of the big developments that's happened on that story, you've had former Supreme Court judges, former High Court judges, extremely senior lawyers, all signing off on a letter addressed to the Supreme Court requesting the top court of this country to take cognizance, to take note of the fact that this kind of bulldozers are being used in every single case. Now, if I were to in fact sum up for you what's mentioned in this letter, they're saying that there's no platform for anyone to voice the opposition, to in fact hold any sort of peaceful protest, that instead of the government actually indulging in dialogue with these protesters, the government is resorting to violent means to shut them down. It's gone further. The letter further goes on to even name UP Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath, saying that he's emboldened his police officials to take violent action against anyone who resorts to protests on the streets of his state. So that's why they've said that the Supreme Court needs to step in this matter, take cognizance and stop this kind of action, this kind of crackdown against protesters. This letter makes no mention of what we've seen with regards to the agitations, the rioting that's happened. In fact, they're saying that instead of allowing these kind of protesters, engaging with them in dialogue to ensure that their protests are peaceful in nature, this kind of bulldozer action is being taken up to silence protests. Now, we'll have to see whether the Supreme Court actually decides to take cognizance of this particular matter. But it's because of this kind of action that Yogi Adityanath has also gotten the name of Bulldozer Baba. It's a step that was taken in Uttar Pradesh in the last many months, where any violence, any rioting, immediately bulldozers are sent out to target the properties of these accused. They're deemed as illegal properties. And the UP Chief Minister is very, very clear that if anyone resorts to law in order to take the strictest action so that they don't dare do it again, that's mentioned in the letter too, saying that this is being done as a step to ensure that people don't dare take law into their own hands, but don't dare also protest against the government. And that's where these former Supreme Court judges, these former High Court judges have a problem. They're saying that this is an attempt to stifle voices, which is why they're saying that there's a need for the Supreme Court to step in this matter, because this is a violation, after all, of someone's fundamental rights. But it's not just in Uttar Pradesh, is it? We've seen it previously in Gujarat, we've seen it in Madhya Pradesh, where bulldozers step in the moment there was any sort of rioting or violence that happened. We saw this during the violence that broke out during Ram Navami celebrations as well. A week later, there were bulldozers out on the streets. So in most BJP-ruled states, this has become the norm. It's also become the norm in several other states to talk about it, to threaten, like in Karnataka, where BJP leaders have made these comments saying, let the bulldozers roll in, don't say anything, don't resort to protests, we'll let the bulldozers do the talking after that. Which is why these judges, these legal luminaries have said that this is an extremely worrying trend that's now spreading across the country. So there are interesting reactions that are coming in on that story as well. Details of what's mentioned in that letter you can catch on our social media handles as well. I want to also tell you about another big story that we're tracking this morning. The presidential elections are happening in July. We popularly refer to it as the race to Resina Hill. And it's all about political lobbying, parties, etc. that are happening. Mamata Banerjee today has called for a meeting at 3 p.m. She's in Delhi. She's asked for opposition leaders to come together to join her in backing one candidate so that they can effectively take on the NDA, they can effectively take on the BJP. Is that happening? Not really. We've seen time and again attempts to, stitch up and cobble up opposition unity for these parties to come together on issues to effectively take on the BJP. It's never really worked out. Is it going to happen this time? Well, I can tell you that so far of the 22 parties that Mamata has invited, there are several parties who've already turned down her invite, like the Aam Aadmi Party, the Telangana Rashtriya Samiti. They've all said that no, we're not going to be there, we're not sending any representative. And let me explain to you why. AAP has said it's a little too early for them to take a stand on this, that whoever is named as the presidential candidate, based on that, they'll take a decision. Similarly, as far as the TRS is concerned, KCR has made it very clear and been very vocal about his national ambitions. And he's spoken about stitching an opposition front minus the Congress. That's where the TRS grouses. The fact that Mamata Banerjee has extended an invite to the Congress and the Congress has accepted. They're saying we're sending a representative for this particular meeting. So the TRS is saying we don't want to be on the same platform as the Congress, which is why we won't be there. But as far as who they'll back as the presidential candidate is concerned, they're saying again, just like UP, that it's a bit too early. So we don't know whether they'll still choose to back the NDA candidate if it's someone who's, cutting across party lines. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But clearly this spells bad news for Mamata Banerjee, an advantage for the BJP, because the AAP and TRS have said we're not going to be a part of this particular meeting. So again, there's a big question mark on how there can be any opposition unity when each political party comes forward with their own terms and conditions. And obviously it's impossible for any one political party to ensure that everyone comes together, ironing out all of these differences, meeting all of the caveats and conditions that each political party puts forth here. The Congress left parties have confirmed that they will be attending Mamata's meeting. 22 parties in all who have been invited. We'll see whether everyone turns up. Another aspect to remember here is that Mamata Banerjee has already pitched a face. She's pitched NCP Supremo Sharad Pawar, saying he is someone who will unite the opposition. But Sharad Pawar reportedly has turned down this invite. We've heard here on India Today from our sources that Sharad Pawar has said, I want to remain in active politics. I'm not ready to take on a presidential role and then kind of retire from active politics. And so he's turned down this offer from Mamata Banerjee. So who will the opposition really put up? Because someone like a Sharad Pawar is needed, a tall leader, someone who unites all of these parties, and it's difficult for them to really find the right candidate at this point, because it will also have to be someone who the AAP, TRS and several other political parties agree with. It'll be interesting to see what plays out in that meeting, and trust us here on India Today to get you all the live updates on that. One final update for you, which is that Rahul Gandhi has been summoned a third time by the Enforcement Directorate in the National Herald case. He was questioned for 10 hours on Monday, 12 hours yesterday. Today, expect another marathon grilling session, even as the Congress, of course, is continuing to say that this is political vendetta. What we're hearing is that Rahul Gandhi has been extremely evasive in questioning. The ED saying that he's clearly been tutored by his lawyers, which is always the case. They will be told by their lawyers what to say and what not to say. And so he's giving very standard responses, which is not good enough for the Enforcement Directorate. So that's another story that you can keep a close eye on with us here on India Today. Those are the stories you need to know. Thanks very much for tuning in. Have a great day ahead.